a lake breaking your diving, and it's about like 10 meters deep. And I mean, if you feel like tired from all the diving, you can just go take a nap and sit on the underwater benches. And the amazing thing about that is that in winter, this entire place is totally dry, so you can go hiking and actually put these benches to good use. So yeah, I think that's enough about rooting for Austria. Maybe I should start talking about the stuff why I'm actually here now today. And I want to give you a quick introduction about the people we're dealing with. And the people we're focusing on are people who have borderline personality disorder. And this is a psychological disorder. And therapists often say that they're a patient group that is very complicated to work with because they have a lot of different, let's say, issues, not like politically correct, but anyways, they show high-risk behavior. They have severe problems with identifying emotions and regulating their emotions. They get sometimes suicidal, and they're also like ambivalent in all areas. Meaning, like, if you think about your partner or your relative or whoever you love very much, I mean, I hope you do. And if you were a borderline person, you could go from, I don't know, loving to hating this person just like by the snap of a finger. And you totally don't know what you've been doing wrong. It's just like the borderline way of thinking and handling emotions. And a majority of borderline people do also self-harm. It's about like 70 to 80%. And it's interesting to note that it's not the other way around. So that if you're self-harming, it doesn't necessarily need to be that you're a borderline person. And self-injurious behavior is basically a coping mechanism. So it helps you relieve stress. It helps you cope with difficult situations. So it's kind of like some people like to go running, other people, I don't know, like to cook, and these people just like, or maybe not like, but they need to hurt themselves just to relieve tension. And these are some forms that are common in self-injury, like cutting or carving, or they burn themselves, they punch themselves, so they insert objects under the skin. There are very severe forms like eye enucleation or amputation of one's limbs, which are very, very heavy, but these do not occur that often. They're mostly associated with like psychotic disorders, and we really did not focus on these ones because they're just like too heavy. What we want to focus is just like draw your attention to the fact that this is just a basic form of coping mechanism, as bad as it may look like, but it's working for these patients. And there is also treatment available, and it's called Dialectical Behavior Therapy, or DBT. And it's been specifically designed for borderline patients. It's a very structured approach. And they have like group sessions where they meet up with other borderline patients, and then they have individual therapy sessions. And what they actually do is they meet up and get together and discuss difficult situations they had. They discuss any skills like positive activities and positive activities they use to help them get rid of stressful situations. And then they discuss these situations and talk about new ways of handling handling stress. And they also get a lot of homework assignments. So like this diary card, for example, it's unfortunately in German, but I'm going to translate real quick. They have to enter information like every day, like if they have been suicidal, if they had an urge to injure, if they actually engaged in injury, or if they discovered any other sort of problematic behavior. And a very important part of this diary card is that they put down information of any skills they use to help them get rid of tension. And it doesn't matter if it was helpful or if it was not helpful, it's just about noting that they did something and just finding out what skills actually do work. And now you might ask if these people already have like paper diary cards in place and they give them out during therapy, why go ahead and build a mobile application around that? But the basic thing is that with paper diary cards, I mean, you can put down any information you like. You can put in information that was dated 3 months ago. You can put in information that hasn't even happened. And there is this thing that therapists like to call recall bias, which means like memory tends to get blurry. I mean, if you think about, I mean, seriously, who actually remembers what they had for breakfast last week, say, Tuesday? Or maybe let me rephrase the question. Do you know how you actually felt when you got your breakfast? I mean, it's difficult, right? And that's basically the problem that you face when you use paper diary cards because you're not in the moment anymore. You also have no interaction. So if I say I'm suicidal and I put it down on my paper sheet, nothing is going to be happening. It's like I can go ahead and kill myself. Nobody's going to care. In general, it's just that electronic tools are lacking. So what we were doing is just like kind of bridging a gap, going from the problem area on the left-hand side with the red squares to the solution area. And what we wanted to do is have like behavioral trajectories in place so that therapists actually know what's happening in between therapy session. What is the patient doing during the week? We want to have context-sensitive interaction, and we want to intervene during times of high tension, tell our patients like, hey, you're at a very high tension, you want to injure yourself, how about try one of these skills you indicated that were working and let's go from there. And we also want to provide real-time information to our therapists so that they are included in the entire process and ultimately empower the patient and motivate behavior change. As far as related work is concerned, I'm just going to go very quickly over that. There are several mHealth apps available. Most of them focus on behavioral change. And what we think is a downside in comparison to our application, in comparison to the unCUT system, is that the target group is way too specific. Also, they have no regard of the equation of tension equals emotion. And tension is the basic thing about borderline patients because they have difficulties identifying their emotions, and they cannot say, I'm sad, I'm happy, I'm angry, but all they can feel and all they can articulate is, I am tense, and I am tense at a level of so-and-so. And they also, most of these applications also have no behavioral trajectories in place. Skills management is lacking, and we all know that some of our skills are changing over time. So sometimes we need to listen to music, sometimes we need to go for a run, or other than that. And there is also no link to personal health records, so the therapists are most often not included in these apps. As far as our methodology is concerned, I'm just going to let you have a look at that yourself. The basic part is that we were doing expert interviews with psychologists, psychotherapists, psychiatrists, and we developed an initial prototype and put that on an Android smartphone at first, and we brought the prototype to the person so that they actually could interact with the prototype. And that's the so-called IKVZ, or I'll know it when I see it approach. So we're thinking about you have a common understanding because you can look at the prototype, click around and say like, I like that part, I don't like this part, maybe that's a little bit dangerous, maybe we could take that out. And we had 4 interview stages, and after each interview stage we went ahead and analyzed our interviews, of course, we identified requirements, and then we took our requirements and fed them into our prototype. So basically, after every interview stage, we had a new version of our unCUT system ready for our interview partners. Now to the results. We were talking to 18 interview partners. They came from Austria, from Germany, and from the United States. And you can see that they all had different therapeutic approaches, and we only discovered after the first interview stage that we need to focus on behavioral therapy because they're way more structured, and that's what you really need if you want to build an app around that. We developed like kind of around about 40 final requirements. I'm not gonna tell you each and every one of these, so I'm just gonna pick 2 of them. The first one is system-based sampling. So we want to have our patients report their tension like on top of every hour, maybe every second hour, and report their tension multiple times a day. And this is not like an abstract thing. This is actually what they have to do in therapy as well. So they have to go ahead and report their attention like 5 or 6 or 7 times a day, just so they know how their attention is like fluctuating over the day. And what we also need to do is consider their emotional capability, as we know that borderline patients have severe problems identifying emotions. And if they are less advanced at identifying their emotions, we want to provide them with facial expressions, and they can just look at the pictures and say like, oh, I identify most with, I don't know, the grumpy version on the left-hand side. And this is what the Android prototype looks like. So the patients are prompted with a notification where they have to enter their attention. And if they are far advanced in therapy, they could go ahead and say like, rate their emotions on a scale from, I don't know, not at all angry until very angry. And as soon as they have reported their attention, it gets automatically transferred to the personal health record of the patient, of the therapist. And it builds up this tension curve, like you see on that slide. And the therapist can then say, like, pinpoint specific situations and say, like, ask specific questions around, like, what was the situation? Why were you feeling so tense? What has happened? And how did you handle the situation? Another requirement I want to talk about is the requirement of skills management. The problem is that when patients are during high distress, they do not remember any of their skills they have at hand. So you need to have something that triggers them and helps them to think about these skills. And that's exactly where an app like unCUT can be beneficial and help out. So we want to have context-sensitive skill intervention. We want to have patients manage and practice their skills, and we also need to be careful that these skills are highly individual and need to be modified over time. And that's what it looks like on the Android prototype. So if a patient enters an urge to injure, the app goes ahead and retrieves all the skills which are available for the patient and says like, hey, last time you indicated this skill was working for you. How about let's try that now? Put your head under ice cold water and let's go from there. As far as the architecture is concerned, we do not only have like the Android prototypes, but they're integrated into an entire framework, into an entire system. So the Android prototypes are talking by the internet with the personal health record, which you see like up there. We also have basic achievement service in place. What we need to do and what we're planning to do is like think about the social network component and kind of, I don't know, share any little success worth having and use peer support to find out if it can actually help borderline patients as well. And that already brings me to my conclusion. And as far as positive aspects are concerned regarding our system is that attention and skill intervention are very important. And it's very good that we included that. It's suitable for any maladaptive behavior. So it doesn't necessarily need a focus on self-injury. And it can be tailored individually. It's got a basic motivational approach available. And what is very important is that it includes the patient-therapist relationship. So we're not going for trying to replace therapists. We want to include them in the process and want to strengthen their relationship. And we believe that our app can do that. As far as drawbacks are concerned, the level of detail of how to document urges and acts of self-injury is still largely unclear. We cannot know until we've performed a trial if any of the questions we ask will trigger maladaptive behavior even further. We have a missing target group, so we only talk to therapists, but we believe that's not such a huge drawback because our therapists act as proxies and they know the therapeutic approaches and treatment best. And of course, the app, as it's in a prototype stage, is still a little bit complex. So our future steps will be to transform unCUT into a fully functional system and then verify usage and verify if it's going to be accepted by borderline patients, if it's going to help them actually. And by that, we're going to have to do a trial. And last but not least, we also want to research on including gamification, including social media, and see if peer support, as is often stated in literature, is actually helping borderline patients as well. And that wraps it all up. I thank you very much for your attention.